So, one thing I keep seeing around here is that, coronavirus can live on surfaces for such and such time or live in the air for such and such time. The thing is most of that is in ideal conditions in a laboratory. And you cannot replicate ideal conditions in the real world, which actually one of the ladies that had been doing it was saying. And I keep seeing this all over the internet, on Facebook, all over. And it makes no sense to me because, yeah, it can live on things for a while. Just like any other virus can, just like polio, mumps, measles, whatever. But the heat kills it. It's got a little tiny outside shell that if it dries or overheats, kills the virus. That's why temperature fluctuations and stuff like that is not ideal, unlike in a laboratory. And I'm going to put down some of the information that I found and put it up here so you guys can see it. But I'm getting really tired of the misinformation out there. I don't know what to believe. I don't know who to believe. I don't know if the news is telling the truth or not. Just like the whole, it hits the younger generation as well. I'm a millennial, but I'm staying inside. I'm being smart and proactive. I don't want to make anybody sick out there. I don't want to make anybody else have a chance of getting this and dying. And I have a grandmother that's in her 80s and a grandfather that's in his 90s. And I'm getting really sick and tired of these people that think that they're invincible and they can go out and party and enjoy their life. It's just for a little bit. Just for a little bit. Why can't you just chill and relax for a little bit? I don't understand it. You're putting everybody else at risk. And that's not cool. And I don't know. This is a terrible virus. It's not the worst one we've ever dealt with. But it is very smart. Even though viruses have no mind or anything like that, they can't think. It's just very good at obviously mutating and spreading. So it's like it's the annoying dog poo on your shoe that you don't realize you have, and then you track it all over the house. That's what it is. And then before you know it, you're smelling it all over the house, and you gotta clean it up. I've done that a few times, and it's disgusting. Thank God we have a carpet shampooer, which is what vaccines are for viruses and whatnot, and antivirals are for it too. That's the carpet cleaner of the carpet that you're living in. So I don't know if the whole, it can hit younger generations, and the younger generations are the ones that are spending more time in the ICU in the United States, or if that's a fear thing that they're trying to do so people stop staying out like they are, like idiots. But all I know is we all need to come together. We all need to stay inside unless you have a job that makes you go out there. I know a lot of people are not getting paid what they should be paid. I know a lot of people are getting fired. I know a lot of people might potentially lose their home. And I know a lot of people have not had the ability to get food or, God knows, toilet paper. Why are people buying toilet paper like it's out of style? Why are people hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer? That's so unfair to everybody else. And it's not right. So, yeah, I don't know who can go through a 24-pack of rolls in a month or a couple weeks. I know I couldn't, even if I was using it everywhere. I use toilet paper to pick up dog poo. I use toilet paper for me. I use toilet paper to clean things. And yet I still don't go through a full roll in a week. Amazing, isn't it? But, anyways, I'll put the post up about the whole it stays on cardboard for 24 hours because I was personally afraid of that because my husband is a delivery driver. And he deals with stuff that comes from areas that have breakouts. And it's a 24-hour 24-hour turnaround. So somebody wants to get it, and then they come over, and my husband picks it up, and he ships it off to where it goes, and he's touching it. So I wanted to personally look up that because I got 2 little girls I need to watch out for, and my health, and my husband's health, because we're the only ones here in Idaho. We don't have family here. So, as you can tell, they're yelling and screaming and watching the Croods fighting over their food. But, anyways, I want to get some more information out there. There's a lot of false information out there. There's a lot of stuff that people need to pay attention to, and people need to actually not believe every single thing that they see online. Because a lot of these times, they don't know what's going on. And a lot of these times, people are doing false information. A lot of fear-mongering out there, and it's not right. And, anyways, here's the info I found. Okay, so it took me a lot of time to find this, but I finally found it. The new study looked at the novel coronavirus in a laboratory setting, and found the virus can survive up to 72 hours on stainless steel and plastic surfaces, and on cardboard for up to 24 hours. Jamie from UCLA is one of the authors. Jamie says, we're talking about potentially days of infectability on some of these surfaces. Aubrey goes, the study gives a range of possible survival times, but keep in mind, in a lab, all the conditions are stable. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. But keep in mind, in a lab, all the conditions are stable. That is very important right there. In the real world, factors such as sunlight can kill off viruses faster. Lloyd collaborated with scientists at the Rocky Mountain Laboratories, a federal lab, to do a series of experiments. They picked up bits of the virus from surfaces that had been contaminated. They then put the virus in a cell cultures to test whether it was still infectious. They also tested how long the virus remained viable in the air. Lloyd Smith says, what these experiments show is that the virus can remain viable floating in the air for some number of hours. The experiments went out to 3 hours, and they were still viable viruses present. Aubrey says, Lloyd says the experiment definitely does not prove that they have been identified this way by particles of virus that float in the air, what scientists call aerolized transmission. He says what remains unknown is what dose is needed to infect someone. So say 50 particles, or some other viruses that it just takes like 2 to infect somebody. There are a lot of things we don't know, so we do not yet know how many viral particles need to get into somebody's airway to initiate an infection. Aubrey says, in all these tests, the new coronavirus tends to behave a lot like the older one, SARS, that led an outbreak in 2003. In fact, the new study shows both viruses remain viable about the same amount of time, but that leads to an important question. Why has this virus spread much more widely? Lloyd says there could be multiple reasons. Lloyd, things like the apparent ability of this novel virus to be transmitted and shed by people who aren't showing severe symptoms or may not be showing symptoms at all, which makes this virus much harder to contain. And Aubrey closes it with, and given this, the advice that we've been hearing for weeks now remains the same. Wash your hands. That's still the best way to protect yourself. From what I hear, it's washing your hands for 20 seconds. But the thing I want you to focus on, okay? The new study looked at the novel coronavirus in a laboratory setting and found that the virus can survive up to 72 hours on stainless steel and plastic surfaces and cardboard up to 24 hours. 72 hours on stainless steel and plastic and 24 hours on cardboard. Okay? But she also says the study gives a range of possible survival times. But keep in mind, in a lab, all the conditions are stable. In the real world, factors such as sunlight can kill off viruses faster. So I want you to keep all that in mind. Because everything I keep reading, how long can coronavirus virus live in the air. USA Today. Let's see if I can read that without them saying you need to subscribe. Coronavirus can remain infectious in droplets in the air for hours and on some surfaces up to 3 days. Now, what I just said, that is incorrect. Because that is only correct if it is an ideal condition like a lab. The virus spreads between people who are in close contact with one another through respiratory droplets. That is correct. Much like the common cold or flu, according to the Centers of Disease. CDC said that there is likely low risk of transmission of COVID from other products or packaging that are shipped over a period of days or weeks. Now, keep in mind, my husband, he gets packages within 24 hours and he delivers them. CDC said that there is likely low risk of transmission of COVID from products or packaging that are shipped over a period of days or weeks. They're saying that, say, if my husband got a package from an area that's a breakout, that he could get it. But a study published in the New England Journal of Medicine on Tuesday found that the viable virus could be detected up to 3 hours later in the air, up to 4 hours on copper, and up to 24 hours on cardboard, and up to 2 or 3 days on plastic or stainless steel. Now, I don't know where the heck they're getting this from, so I'm going to click it. Well, they want me to download it. Because from what I just read, they said that that's in ideal conditions. So let's check this out. Oh, cool. It tells you there's 27,000 words. Laboratory and Biology, abstract. SARS-2 is, I guess, what it's called now. 88,000 reported illnesses. Fatality ratio of 2%. So that's not that bad. We investigate the stability of the viable coronavirus on surfaces and aerosols in comparison with the SARS #1, which is the very first one. Overall stability is very similar. We found the virus could be detected aerosol up to 3 hours post and up to 4 hours on copper, 24 hours on cardboard, and 2 to 3 days on plastic stainless steel. Now, this doesn't say if it's in a real life scenario, like say you're walking and the aerosol droplets are being disturbed in the air, okay? It's not saying if there's a sun hitting it or anything like that, or if it's warm or cold. Median estimates around 2.7 hours. Exhibited similar half-lives in aerosols with median estimated around 2.7 hours. So they're saying that they could be detected up to 3 hours, but the median is 2.7 hours. Now I'm wondering if they just found one little virus particle on the ground or on this thing and said, oh yeah, this is, viable. Both viruses show relatively long viability on stainless steel, which, yeah, that's obvious, and polypropylene compared to copper and cardboard. Median half-life estimate for it is around 13 hours on steel and 16 hours on polypropylene. Our results indicate that aerosol and formite transmission is plausible, as the virus can remain viable in aerosols for multiple hours and on surfaces for days. So, you go from could be detected up to 3 hours post aerosolization. And the results indicate that aerosol and formite transmission is plausible, as a virus remains viable in aerosols for, and now keep this. Let's see if I can do this. Stupid phone. It is plausible as a virus can remain viable in aerosols for multiple hours and on surfaces for up to days. So they're being very vague there. Multiple hours and up to multiple days. They don't want to have Sorry, my phone's dying. They don't want to have an actual number on it. Now named severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, throughout this manuscript, emerged from Wuhan in late 2019 as of March 3, 2020. This is kind of an old one. 88,000 cases have been found. 2,000 deaths. They're not talking about the recovery, which is about 84,000, I think, for recovery right now. And over 200,000 people have it now. Rapid expansion of this outbreak indicates an efficient human-to-human transmission. Has been detected in upper and lower respiratory tracts from patients with high viral loads in upper respiratory tract samples. All right, let's get out of this. We're not by any way saying there is aerosol transmission of the virus. What? But the study just said that there is, up to 3 hours. No, actually up to 4 hours. But the study published in New England Journal of Medicine on Tuesday found that viable viruses could be detected up to 3 hours later in the air, up to 4 hours on copper, and up to 24 hours on cardboard, and up to 3 days on plastic and stainless steel. Well, sorry, y'all. That tap, that's plastic. That's on my phone. But we're not by any way saying there is aerosolized transmission of the virus. But this work shows that the virus stays viable for long periods in these conditions, so it's theoretically, I am stuttering right now, possible to transmit it. So, what the heck? The virus was deposited onto surfaces including plastic, stainless steel, cardboard, and copper to represent the variety of household and hospital settings. Over time, the amount of viable viruses on the surface decreased sharply. So just like, say, AIDS, once the virus is dried up, it's dead. Once the blood is dried up, it's dead. And I learned that because I am highly afraid of AIDS. The paper that recently published these are under ideal sorts of finally somebody actually said it. The paper that recently published these are under ideal sorts of experimental situations. If someone were to say cough on a box or on a letter, the chances of that remaining viable for a period of time it's in transit seems extremely unlikely. Finally, thank you, USA Today. However, if you really want to look at this, we've been flooded with thousands of reader questions, coronaviruses. How long was the New York Times? Let's check this out. Coronavirus can live 3 days on some surfaces like plastic and steel, new research suggests. Okay, so they're just repeating. New England Journal of Medicine, repeating. When the virus becomes suspended in droplets smaller than 5 micrometers, known as aerosols, it can stay suspended for about half an hour. Okay, so not 3 hours, just a half an hour. Researchers said before drifting down into the setting of surface where it can linger for hours. Okay, so when it gets down onto the surfaces, yes, any virus can linger for hours. The finding on aerosol in particular is inconsistent with World Health Organization position that the virus is not transported by air. So, they are saying it is not transported by air. Virus lives longest on plastic and steel. That is understandable because plastic and steel does not have holes in it where the virus can drop down into and not go onto your hand. Plastic and steel is fairly smooth. So I can understand why it can live up to 72 hours on that. The amount of viable virus decreased sharply over the time. It also does poorly on copper, which I think they should actually start looking into the reason why it does poorly on copper. Surviving 4 hours. So after it survives for 4 hours, does it like die? On cardboard, it can survive up to 24 hours, which suggests packages that arrive in the mail should only have low levels of the virus. Oh, goody. However, like I said before, this is ideal conditions. Ideal. Not going on a plane where it's freezing. Not staying in a car where it gets overly hot. This is ideal conditions in a lab. They have not figured out how long it'll last on a package that is not ideal in a lab. Unless the delivery person has coughed or sneezed on it or has handled it with contaminated hands. Well, obviously, this right here is any virus. You can have that for the flu as well. That's true in general unless the people who handle any of these materials are sick. The actual risk of getting infected from any of these materials is low. Everything at the grocery store and restaurant takeout containers and bags could, in theory, have infectious virus on them. Well, yeah, because if you sneeze or cough on it, same goes with the flu or cold. You can pick it up. We could go crazy discussing these what-ifs because everyone is a potential source. So we have to focus on the biggest risks. The biggest risks. So what do they say is the biggest risk? If people are concerned about the risk, they could wipe down packages with disinfectant wipes and wash their hands. It is unclear why cardboard should be a less hospitable environment for the virus than plastic or steel. No, it's not unclear why cardboard should be a less hospitable environment than plastic or steel. Because cardboard has little tiny places where the virus can go into. The virus can also dry off on cardboard. This is my speculation here. But have you ever dropped the water on cardboard? It dries up. It soaks into it and then dries up. But it may be explained by the I didn't even read that. But it may be explained by the absorbency or fibrous quality of the packaging compared to other surfaces. Hold on, babe.
Okay.
That virus can survive and stay infectious like aerosols is also important for the healthcare. So, it's a video for...
Oh, you're doing a video?
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's funny. Everybody's sharing, and I'm doing the video about this because it's irritating me like none other. Everybody's sharing that the virus can live in the air for 3 hours, on cardboard for 24 hours, and on steel and plastic for
3 days.
3 days. But it's ideal conditions.
Yeah.
So, but they're running with it. Every news channel is running with it.
Oh, of course.
Every single news one. I finally found the thing that the lady was talking about.
If you keep them scared, people are going to continue watching you, praying for the good thing.
Right? So I read this. It is unclear why cardboard should be less hospitable environment for the virus than plastic or steel. I read that, right? I didn't read down any lower.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that makes sense because, you know...
It didn't want your wallet, baby.
Sorry. I'm like, that makes sense because, you know, if you put water on cardboard, it's going to dry up. If it dries up, the virus dies.
Yes.
So I didn't read down any lower. And I read, but it may be explained by the absorbency or fibrous quality of the packaging compared with other surfaces. So metal, obviously, is flat and soft, not soft, but non-porous. Steel is non-porous. Plastic is non-porous, mostly.
Very, very porous.
Mostly.
Yeah.
And that's why it survives so long on that. That the virus can survive and stay infectious in aerosols is also important for healthcare workers. That's also why a lot of healthcare workers have stainless steel and steel everywhere. For weeks, experts have maintained that the virus is not airborne. But in fact, it can travel through the air and stay suspended for that period of about a half an hour. That is, if people aren't walking through it, getting it stuck on their clothing, stuff like that. The virus does not linger in the air at high enough levels to be a risk to most people who are not physically near an infected person. So just give a lot of people that are coughing and sick a wide berth. But the procedures healthcare workers use to care of infected patterns are likely to generate aerosols. Once you get a patient in with severe pneumonia, the patient needs to be intubated. All these handlings might generate aerosols and droplets. Well, yeah, that's obvious. Anyways, it's almost 20 minutes in, so I'm going to leave it at, based on aerosol science and recent findings on flu viruses, surgical masks are probably insufficient because, well, you don't wear it right. It sounds scary, but unless you've been close to someone, the amount you've been exposed to is very low. Bizarre experiments are done under very ideal, controllable conditions. So let me read the whole thing. To access the ability of the virus to survive in the air, to Oh, to assess the ability of the virus to survive in the air, the researchers created what Dr. Munster described as bizarre experiments, done under very ideal, controllable, experimental conditions. They used a rotating drum to suspend the aerosols and provide temperature and humidity levels that closely mimic hospital conditions. Closely mimic, but not right. They don't have people walking around. They don't have AC going. They don't have the stuff that goes in the hospitals. And to this setup, the virus survived and stayed infectious for up to 3 hours, but its ability to infect drops sharply over this time. The aerosol might only stay aloft for about 10 minutes. With that assessment, and said they could stay in the air for 3 times longer. She also said that the experimental setup might be less comfortable for the virus than a real-life setting. Yeah, sure. In a lab, less comfortable than real-life setting for the virus. Researchers used a relative humidity of 65%. Many, but not all viruses have shown that they survive worst at this level of humidity. They do best at lower and much higher humidity. Humidity in a heated house is less than 40%, at which the virus might survive even longer. Mucus and respiratory fluids might also allow the virus to survive longer than in the laboratory fluids and researchers used for their experiments. Why am I stuttering? I'm reading too much. Other experts said that the paper's findings illustrate the urgent need for some information about the virus's ability to survive in aerosols and under different conditions. We need more experiments like this, in particular extending the experimental sampling for aerolized virus beyond 3 hours and testing survival under different temperatures and humidities. That would be a great idea, seeing as how there are parts of the U.S. that are more humid than other parts, same with the whole world. Noted that overall the new coronavirus seems no more capable of surviving for longer periods than its close cousins SARS and MERS, which caused previous epidemics. That suggests that there are other reasons, such as transmission by people who don't have symptoms, for its ability to cause a pandemic. So they're pretty much saying that it's not really in the air that's getting it, it's on the surfaces. So wash your freaking hands, use hand sanitizer. Even if you use hand sanitizer, don't think that that's a godsend, and make sure to keep your hands clean, keep your phone clean, don't use public bathrooms, and avoid people that are coughing. That's all I gotta say about it. I'm just really irritated with all this news. Let's see here. Coronavirus. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. Coronavirus. Sustainability on surfaces. New study finds coronavirus can survive in the air for hours on surfaces for days. Well, that's a great catchy top. How coronaviruses persist on surfaces and how to inactivate them. That's February. Let's see the new stuff. Coronavirus can last hours in the air and days on some surfaces. Survive in air for hours and on surfaces. How long can a coronavirus survive on surfaces? So all this, they're all catchy. They're all there to scare you. And it's really annoying. Just freaking wash your hands. Pay attention. Avoid sick people. And don't go out unless you need to. Simple as that.